Everybody. Good afternoon. While we're waiting to try to get our screen fixed, I'd just like to talk to you for a second. Sue went to the bathroom. Where's Sue? She went to the bathroom to get tissue just in case we cried. I told her no crying today. All right, today is not the cry day. Yesterday was the cry day. Today we're gonna work, and then tomorrow we're gonna have warm and fuzzy. How about that? Will that work? I like warm and fuzzy, but today is a work day. All right, so look at your partner next to you and say, we're working today. Although we did work yesterday. I just want you to know, we definitely worked yesterday. Maybe we didn't realize we were working because we were into what we were doing. But we did work yesterday. So after you put the comments on the board, Michelle and Erin and the crew, Diane, yep, we all talked. And we think what we want to do today is sort of take a really deep dive into Essential 6, right? So some people wanted to do that, others wanted to do other things. So we'll do all of them. Again, yesterday was Friday. Today is work day. Tomorrow we'll go warm and fuzzy. All right. Okay, so today, work day. Say work day one more time. Work day. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is to recognize, and I want to recognize a person on our update team. Emily, stand and turn around. All right, everybody know Emily. Emily is my right and left hand. Oh, that's just a long story, but so Emily actually worked on Essential 6. So I'll just call her up to make this presentation now.
I like the party.
Okay.
All
All right. So there was a process, and many of you are familiar with it, where we looked at the current research and added articles. You see that at the back of your, if you look in your booklets. We also made sure that we highlighted the changes that were made. Oh,
Sorry about that.
thank you. Awesome, yeah. It's all good.
We go back to 10.
I'm one of those real flexible kind of facilitators. And by the way, I'm facilitating, so you will have to talk back to me today. So prepare. You don't need a mic. If you do, I have one of them. All right, so yesterday, what we did was we started talking about identity. And when we think in terms of our identity, and who we are and what we believe, it made me think about something called identity kits. Anybody familiar with that term? Identity kit? And within your identity kit includes knowledge, experiences, beliefs, and values. Again, I'll go backwards. Beliefs and values, knowledge, and experience. So where do those beliefs come from? Somebody just talk to me. You have a set of beliefs and values. Where does that come from? Home. Yes. Any place else? Community. Church, community, all of those places, right? It's a part of our culture, who we are, where we come from. And all of us have that, right? We all came from somewhere. We're not individuals on our own, but we're a part of some kind of group. We grew up, no matter how good or negative those experiences were, we all have identity kits. And so a part of my work deals with the cultural dissonance that occurs when the teacher identity kit clashes with the student identity kit, because we don't all come from the same place. But what we learned yesterday is, although there may be some, differences amongst us, there are many commonalities. We all hurt. We all have pain. We are all in some state of grief and loss. And I'm not going to go into that direction, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we have a lot of things that we have in common. And one of the things that we want to start doing when we think in terms of working with teachers is making sure that we recognize those commonalities. Some of us have a set of experiences where maybe there's a little more knowledge because you've gone to school a little bit longer. You have experiences where maybe you've taught longer than other people. But regardless of all of that, we do all have some kind of commonalities. And I again want to acknowledge Emily, because her work is on, talk a little bit really quickly about it, Emily.
Okay, so this is turning around the spot. Hello, everybody.
Yes.
So I am dissertating right now, and the work that I'm interested in is a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about, or Dr. Lawley has been talking about how we can uplift and utilize the positive relationships that we have with teachers to really dig into what Dr. McMillon is talking about, which is who a teacher is and how knowing that helps teachers make that more sustainable and transformative changes in their practice. I work with a lot of teachers and sometimes that doesn't happen. And so how can we kind of like dig in to see what the barriers are? So that's what I'm interested in and what I'm working on and working on in my districts as well.
And she has a phenomenal model. She won't go into detail with that right now, but just thinking of the human side of everyone. We all have a human side, so we want to make sure we tap into that. And that's what yesterday was about, recognizing our human side. So today we want to continue and looking at Essential 6, what and how. So what happened yesterday? For a second, I'd like to reflect. And if you could just write a couple sentences on what you experienced yesterday. What happened? Just real brief. It may not have been a positive experience for everybody. You write how you feel. Okay, the abbreviated version of it. And now think about yesterday's activities and how did those activities connect to Essential 6? What were we doing? What were we trying to do? How does it connect to Essential 6? And it's okay if you use a cheat sheet and actually look at Essential 6 and see if it's making sense to you. How can we connect what we did yesterday with identity and with writing about grief and loss and connect that to Essential 6?
Writing for relevance and purpose.
I knew you were going to answer. I could see it in your eyes. Can you say that a little bit louder?
Opportunity to write for relevance and purpose.
Okay, somebody build on that on this side.
I think it fostered my motivation and engagement. I about how fast the time went. I'm motivated and engaged, and that kind of goes on. Like we had a purpose, right? It was be connected to it, so we were motivated. You're the expression that fosters motivation and engagement.
Could you see yourself? What's your name?
Stephanie.
So Stephanie, could you see yourself working with teachers in that way and helping them understand how to do that with students? Okay, okay. Go ahead, no, jump in. Remember, I'm just facilitating. I want conversation today, okay?
We had really good models of reading, the book that we listened to and the poem that we got to read and we listened to. So that we're.
What's your name?
Sure.
Sherry. So talk to me about the models. Were they the usual kind of models that you might see in a classroom?
I don't think so. I think when I think about working with younger students, poetry can be really hard. But having that model yesterday made it seem like it would be really easy to do with their students.
Okay.
And the group that I talked to yesterday, they all heavily relied on that home when they were writing their own.
I did too.
Yeah.
I find myself using the same pattern. And that's what we want students to do, right? And that's what we can teach teachers to do with their students. Okay, so heavy on this side, I'm coming over. Somebody else over here. Talk to me about how the activities from yesterday connect to Essential 6 for you.
We had a diverse author because we saw the diverse text, the multimedia text, with the video, but also it was a common shared experience. Most people had a large
before she passed, and so a lot of us could relate to.
Can you see how students might do the same thing if teachers implement a similar kind of lesson? My grandson actually teared up when he saw that. And he's 21, just graduated from CMU, but he was a serious Kobe fan. He was like, "Oh, play it again, grandma." Like, oh, Kristen. So very good. You said a lot. One of the things was the commonality that we had, connecting to Kobe, but you also use this other term, multimedia. Talk to me about multimedia.
That we can use songs, we can use videos, we can incorporate other shared things that can serve as a text or a mentor text, not just books.
Everybody hear that? Now it's just books. Now I love books. I love the smell of books. Anybody weird like that, right? You know, nowadays, that black text cannot compete for some children to engage them in the ways that we need to engage them. And so I'm really excited about the work that my son is doing with the more contemporary hip hop music in the background of, you know, the books and that. It really like grabs their attention in a different kind of way. So multimodal activities are critical when we're talking about engaging students. And it's not just Black students. You know, all kids listen to the same stuff these days. You do know that, right? Yeah, so it's not like my age. I'm 62, so back in the day, you know, well, my age, actually, we listen to some of the same stuff, but then it kind of changed. Now it's back. I just want you to recognize that and realize that that kind of music is what everybody's kind of listening to. All right, anybody else want to comment in the back of the room? How does it connect to Essential Six? One more person. Anybody from the back of the room? Very good, because I was getting ready to point to you.
So coming at it from like K and 1, that interactive writing, and I use that poem with my kindergartners and some second graders. And we wrote Where I'm From poems together, and it was so fun, and they got to share them. They're very proud of it, but bringing in that interactive writing piece with the zine, something that might be considered, you know, too advanced for them, but then bringing in that you know, doing it together piece made it perfect.
So talk to us more about that. That's fantastic. You did it at that level. So I believe kids can do anything well, I don't call them kids, first of all, I call them scholars, but I believe that they can do anything we expose them to and ask them to do and expect them to do. So can you talk a little bit more about what you did?
So seems like forever ago, but you know, it's a great beginning of the year thing because you get to, you know, where are we all from? And it's lots of oral language and building that first, and then you get to share the pen with them, and some people can, you know, they're writing, I'm from my cat, you know. And so come up and write that. How do we say, you know, how can we write cat? And so little things like that.
Fantastic. Okay, awesome. All right, great job.
I have someone on Zoom.
Oh, somebody on Zoom. I forgot about Zoom. Forgive me, everybody online.
Sarah, go ahead and unmute and share what you. I'll share what she said. She said, authentic purposes, like previously mentioned, kids actually writing for meaning and writing about things that matter to them.
Writing for meaning and things that matter, which is very similar to what you said. Yeah. All right. Oh, yes. Go ahead.
We really connected that essential six, the essential one, which it does by listening to each other and sharing, and which I was very vulnerable. But it really helped us. When people were listening to it, it really affirmed my identity. So
Talk to me more about that.
That essential one.
I hear your heart. I want you to talk a little bit more.
Well, you know, when it's something that's hard to talk about sometimes to share, I felt that my colleagues were listening to me and we were glad of it. Wow.
That's great. You know, in fact, just somebody said they've known you for a really long time and didn't know any of that information about you. They thought you were a superstar student. You know, so that was really awesome. You want to say something about humanity? I just feel like you do.
I suppose, okay.
I feel like I shouldn't have said this.
Oh, no.
She was leading this.
Like, seriously.
I didn't see who spoke, but I was also thinking about the connections to Essential One about seeing yourself as a writer. I was, one of my colleagues was saying, you know, I'm not very good at this, or I can't do this. And by the end, when we just wrote and we listened to each other and we praised each other, then, you know, it turned into this like, oh, I am a writer. So I feel like that really ties into, you know, a few of the votes in Essential One as well.
That's great. And you know, in order to teach it well, we have to have a level of confidence that we can do it. And when you said you made yourself vulnerable, you know, that is a part of teaching. It is so important. Yes, yes, they need to see the vulnerability and the teachers who you're working with. We ask teachers to make themselves vulnerable. As literacy coaches, you want them to make themselves vulnerable to you. So don't we have to do the same? Teaching really is a heart-to-heart kind of experience. So, so that we don't start the teardropping again, we're gonna move on to the next slide. But yeah, so the question is, where do we go from here? I really appreciate the fact that you recognize the connection between what happened yesterday and Essential 6, because we weren't quite sure if you did. We just wanted to make sure that we sort of put some context around all of the beautiful experiences that we had and recognize that students can do that as well. That's the kind of class that we want to run on authentic, a class that allows for authentic opportunities. Now, of course, there will always be lesson plans. There will always be, you know, mandates and all of that. But within that, we can plant. Those are authentic opportunities so that it's not dry, you know. We still have to do the work, but we want to make sure that we're putting those authentic opportunities in there. Okay, so the question is, where do we go from here? We want to take a closer look at Essential 6 and review updated changes. And with that, I'm going to take a seat because, you know, I'm going to have to figure out how to get to the next part. By now, you know, without Emily, I'm challenged.
Aren't we all?
All right, here we go. Just 1 second.
It's one of those tabs.
Mhm, there it is. Now, see it now. See, she's the one talking about you too. All right, now we'll make it bigger by doing that. Did you just talk to yourself?
Yeah.
Don't look down on me because I don't know. Okay, Gwen, here we go. Right now, I gotta make it bigger so I can see it. Y'all know, I got big glasses now. Right. And bam, there we go. All right, so I will begin, and some of you have already gone over this, I think, perhaps, when we met in Saginaw. I think we talked about this some, but I just want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to see it. For Essential 6, as you can see, we moved daily time from the second bullet to on a daily basis and put it at the top because we wanted to lead with writing should happen on a daily basis. Of course, we know that's not always the case, right? Thumbs up if we know that's not always the case. All right, and it also says in across content areas in the school day. So every day, all the time, basically, and as you can see, there are articles, research articles backing that up. Also, the teacher provides opportunities for children to write a variety of the text for a variety of purposes and audiences. To support children in doing so, the teacher provides. So, as you can see on the right, there's, another article that supports across content areas in the school day. Just for a show of hands, can you tell me, concerning the schools where, the teachers that you work with, is that happening? If it's happening for you, can you raise your hand? Okay. Okay, very good.
Daily writing and prep content, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so what's your name?
Mine,
Uh-huh,
Jessica.
I'm coming back to you, Jessica.
Okay.
So I just want everybody now online, did we have anybody raise their hand?
No.
Okay. Huh. I just want to take a moment and recognize what just happened. Okay, so the research says that we should do it every day across content areas. And I think we had 2 people raise their hand, which tells us that it's not happening. Now, I'm gonna come back to this because I know all of us want to figure out how to make that happen, right? Okay, that's why we're here. We're gonna talk more about it. But I wanted to take the moment just to recognize. Okay, the next bullet, actually the first bullet, this was a response to a request to explain what. We explain how to use poetry during that. So this was the only change that occurred was a change to explain what interactive writing is. The next one, we changed daily time for children to write and aligned with instructional practices. Number 1, to be explicit that essential number 1 deals with motivation and engagement. And so what we tried to do is make sure when we made changes that we connected certain bulleted comments to whatever essential was related to that. Does that make sense? Okay, all right. The next one also was added by request. We added some information about writing strategies and what they are, and that research supports a gradual release of responsibility in teaching them. Is everybody familiar with gradual release of responsibility? Okay, I won't ask who is not, because when there's a general consensus that somebody knows, very few people will say they don't know. So I will just say that the gradual release of responsibility means that we show them first and we pull away slowly. So we do it, it's to with by is the concept. We teach to them, then we do it with them, and then we expect it to be done by them. Thumbs up, to with by, yes, all right, fantastic. And then next one, we added the point that models of writing should be by diversity of authors, interconnected with essential aid. We saw some of that yesterday. Thank you for recognizing that. And the final one, elaborated by request on effective handwriting instruction. And by the way, I just have to say that I know high schoolers who can't write cursive writing. Well, anyway, I'll move on from that because you may feel a different way than me, and we won't argue for that. Provided examples by request of spelling strategies and also by request of sentence construction work. Essential 6 did not have a lot of changes. What we tried to do was provide a little more detail based on the feedback that we received. Any questions on Essential 6 and the changes that occurred? Yes.
Is this crosswalk available online?
No. That's something that there was a discussion about if we would, add that, and the decision was. But if you have questions, you can email me or Emily. We can always give you feedback.
Well, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be linked though to the May
Yeah.
quarterly?
Yeah,
So it is
Right,
online.
it's on there.
We got it.
Yes.
And it was very
Don't
helpful.
tell anybody.
It was very helpful. We were just doing work with one of our groups and we gave them the old essentials, the new essentials. And they found the differences and that helped us explain. And they were more active than I've ever seen them in the essentials, when we gave them those two to compare and digest it. It was very powerful. And gave us the correct things to say of why those changes were made, and not just
Very good point.
shooting from
Now,
the-
that did happen in the early
In
literacy task force session. Right? Yeah. But, so I don't know how this all works for you guys, politically. I'm just, the messenger. And I'm not sure what the chain of command is or whatever. But, I'm sure if you make a request and you want to know how things work, that, Erin will help.
At least since we know that we already have the document, right, as a network, we're just going to link it in the resources for this week too. You know, because you already had access to it, so, we'll just start there.
Yeah, start there. And if the teachers are more willing to, you know, implement it, the teachers you're working with, because you put those two documents together and work through it with them, then definitely that's a great idea, right? Okay, all right. I'll move right on from there. All right. As my husband would say, all right, fight fast. Okay, now I'm trying to find my phone. Where's my phone? Where are you? So I think, no, that's not you.
In the very middle, I think.
Where is it, Emily?
Yes.
Where is it? Right there? I'll just get out.
In the
of it.
very middle at the bottom, I think.
Right in the middle of your bottom tab,
In the middle of my Bible.
that purple, there you go.
Purple. It
Oh.
goes like that, right? Am I not on Zoom
Oh,
anymore?
no, he might need to click into that.
Oh, maybe she won't find it.
Yeah. I think she closed.
So next time you guys give me a lesson on how to do this before I start doing my stuff.
I think he may be disconnected from the
I must be disconnected because I don't see it. Do you see me?
No, it's kind of frozen.
It's
as
frozen,
if
so
you
I
had-
must have gotten
Yeah,
disconnected.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
She's still. Yeah, thank you, Michelle.
Oh, they did say that the hotspot was on, so. Mhm. Hmm? Mhm. No, let me try here. I'll
Oh.
just flip here.
Yeah, I think you're still in the meeting.
I'm still in.
I'm still showing you in the meeting,
Uh,
so,
I think she's just not, she doesn't have a strong enough internet connection to display it.
okay,
Is it still sharing the screen?
yes.
Mhm, and
It
we're
is?
seeing what she's doing right now.
Oh, it is. Oh, that's weird.
Because she's sharing your screen.
But I don't see that. It's not on mine.
That is weird.
Is it a Mac?
Okay.
Well, if you meant to
You're right.
go back to the slides, even though you can't see us, we can see you. So
Okay.
feel free to continue with whatever you were, yeah. 'Cause we
All
see
right,
it.
so you can see it. Bob?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Fantastic. Okay, so here we are. We've talked about Essential 6, took a deeper dive. Now, are there any questions? I want to ask one more time. It's not things that you're not necessarily familiar with. Okay, now what? So yesterday, when you put the notes on the sticky notes on the wall, one of the things that we noticed, one of the themes was how do we implement writing in difficult spaces? For example, when writing is not happening at all, or when teachers are uncomfortable with writing, I'm seeing nods. So I want to talk to you briefly now about now what? We've taken a look at Essential 6. We've talked about a very difficult topic and given an example. But how do we implement writing in difficult spaces? So we're online. Can anybody, is this being recorded, isn't it? Okay, so I won't ask for a show of hands. But perhaps some of you have experienced trying to implement writing or some other topic when administrators are not supportive of it. I won't ask for a show of hands, but it's for you. I want to say, you probably feel like you want it, you need some help, you need the support of administration. When I saw that, I was like, perfect. So there's this tug of war happening. And I do realize that administrators have lives, they have many things they're thinking about other than just what the, literacy coach wants to happen in a school. But the things that you are doing are so valuable, and sometimes you may not feel that the administrator is valuing that. So what can you do when an administrator is not supportive? I'm going to turn to you and ask you, way back at some point in your past life, definitely not who you're working with now, you may have had an administrator that wasn't supportive. And can you talk about the experience and what you did to turn that around? Anybody? Anybody had that experience? Okay, I have. I have had that experience. And so I was actually running a grant called the Saginaw Oakland Literacy Grant. Oops, I said Saginaw. And there were several administrators who were not supportive of what the teachers were trying to do. So what we had to do was sort of tip around and do it individually. It's not the best way. It's always best if you can do like school-wide and you can have that common vocabulary and all of those kinds of things, but it may not always be that situation for you. So when they aren't supportive, you find teachers who will work with you and you do what you can. What you cannot do is give up, because that is not what's best for the scholars. And how many of us are here because we love the scholars and we want to make a difference in their lives? All right, so it's not an option. You can't give up. You thought I was going to come up with some, major thing, some creative thing to get around administrators. No, the best you can do is try to develop a relationship with them. And if that doesn't work, then you have to find ways to go around them and help the teachers anyway. So it's called an anyhow kind of experience. But there's also a situation when teachers simply don't know how to do what you're asking them to do. Now, we think because teachers go to school for X amount of years, maybe because they've been in teaching for X amount of time, so long that they're supposed to know how to teach writing. That's not necessarily the case. And I know you know that, so I'm singing to the choir. But what is it that we can do to help build them up rather than tear them down? And I want to say to you, begin with the familiar. What is it the teachers do well? When you're talking to a teacher, what is it that they do well? We know writing isn't happening for the most part, so they're not doing writing well. But what do they do well? Do they do science well? Are they really good in social studies? Are they really good teaching poetry? What are they good with? Talk about what they might. And that's where we want to start, because nobody wants anybody tearing them down. Everybody wants to be built up, right? So begin with the familiar. And that's not new to you. That's how we teach. We begin with the familiar and move to the unfamiliar, right? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to separate ourselves. Now, this is going to be kind of crazy, but I'm going to ask you to do it. So I want the math people over here, people who have teachers who are good at math. Social studies over here, people who are good in social studies or have teachers who are good in social studies, or just want to be over here just because you want to get your steps in. ELA over there and science over there. So let's move really quickly. Where did I just tell people to go? Math. Okay, so I'm glad you guys know, because Say it one more time. Who's back there? Science. Who's up here? Social studies. Who's over there? Yeah. And who's up here? Math. All right, let's move really quickly.
In the chat.
Really quickly. Yeah, take your notes with you. Okay, and let's see, what are we gonna do with the people online? Maybe breakout rooms? I don't know. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Here we go.
Okay.
All right. We got the social studies people over here. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you're gonna find a spot and kind of gather together. I don't know how just figure it out. We're creative. Okay, maybe turn it off. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to, within your group, talk about if somebody's really good at math, somebody's really good in science, somebody's really good in social studies, whatever that might be. How might you build on what they love to do? What are a couple writing assignments or ways to write about things in that particular area? Now, I know that's real fuzzy, but you can work with it. All right, here we go. Constructivism is sort of semi. All right, so for math people, what writing assignment for people?
So then,
You got the idea. Come on, get it together now. Yeah.
Where's Sarah? One, two. Oh, she's in mine. Please feel free to place me. Yeah. Okay, so there is this one. But Sarah wanted to be able to. So like, where's the person? Here's what she did. I'm gonna take that with you. Hi, Ursula, can you hear me? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put you in a room with some people who, everybody had a different content area, but you were all in a room, they were all in a room by themselves. So I think there's just 2 in there now.
I'm flexible.
I didn't put you in there. Just give me one.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, do you see an invitation to join room 1?
I don't.
No, okay. So I'm gonna move you back. I'm gonna move you to a room and I'm gonna move you back to room 1. So you're gonna probably see it twice, okay?
That's fine.
Okay, it's just good. It's still not there though. Didn't work? Okay. Let me get her.
No, it didn't.
Okay, apologize. All right, she's gonna start again anyway. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
For a second. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to let each give one thing. I want to show you a video and then I want you to use that as a mentor text to come up with one more writing assignment. Okay, over here, math group.
Story of their math, I got it.
Oh, writing the story of their math. I know everybody's like, oh. Yeah. All right, the group here, the science group. Just one example real quick.
incorporating science, writing science, using, I'm gonna give you an example. So I worked with a teacher at the end of the year, motivation was all-time low. Students, she wanted writing, and she said, they don't wanna write, they don't wanna do anything. I knew her daughter was an architect. So we built in a STEM unit and we did writing. We made interview questions for the daughter. We built Kiva planks. We designed buildings for the community, what might fit into our community. It was so awesome. It was a great way to build in writing, so interview questions.
Right.
Design the building, what would it look like? Use our senses then to build it. It's so cool.
Okay, we got a whole unit over there. Make sure you're taking notes. All right, over here, our ELA people, just one example real quick. Other people will be able to talk later. Come on, don't all volunteer at once. You better be glad I don't know names. All right, blue shirt, come on. Go ahead, go ahead.
We had class write how friendly they were learning parts of a friendly letter, and so they, through interactive writing, they would write the learning of, or they would write in response to the read about that the teacher had, kind of summarize it and what they loved about it. So they would send, they'd take the chart then and give it to the principal who read it, but then she wrote back, and it continued on a weekly basis.
Right.
It was really motivated and the students to want to write.
Right.
And more, and engage them more in the process, of course. And then she came up with another idea, you know, if we had them write to, you know, their class, another kindergarten class, and that keep going on, depending on the topic. But it gave them a purpose and everything, right? So it was really fun.
Do you realize how often we've said something about essential one and we're talking about this?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Like, just recognize that. Thank you so much. All right, our social studies group.
So teaching social studies through historical fiction novels, you can bring in a lot of writing with that, bring in the actual historical events, compare and contrast, the book to the events, or even write a letter from the perception of a character, and so like thinking like Civil War, writing a letter back home or something like that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, great work, everybody. And now we want to hear from our Zoom friends. Wait a minute, let me.
I can share if you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So, I think I might have been the only person who chose social studies. And then, because obviously we're a group of ELA people, and another person had chose math. And so we didn't really connect, we didn't really get to talk about them from one perspective, but building on to the social studies group in person, that's the same line of thinking where I was going, like with historical fiction, writing from the perspective of others and learning about history through the characters and those connections that kids would have with people from the past. So same kind of thing.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, Sarah. Okay, so I have a quick question, everybody. Wait a minute. Let me go back. Hold on. Gotta click this first. I didn't know that much. Share sound. All right, so I'd like to share a mentor text, but I want you to choose. All right, so here we have Black Lives Matter, Listen to God with Your Heart, Grandma's Lunch. You already saw Kobe and G. Light Up the Land, Neighborhood Nap. What do you guys want to watch? Grandma's Lunch is my favorite. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's Grandma's Lunch. Okay, come on. Here we go. Yeah, you could go back to your seat. You may have to get back in those groups again, but here we go. All right. Sorry. All right. We're gonna stay awake. Why did you want Greta? Okay, here we go. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Grandma's Lunch. Written by Rooted In. Illustrated by Ray Spence. Mrs. Jones wrapped a paper dinner plate in foil and placed it in a grocery bag. "Mike, Grandma's lunch is ready," she called. "Mama, can somebody else take it to her house today?" groaned Mike. "I was watching the baseball game." "I'll take it," said Kiki, Mike's 8-year-old sister. "No, that's too far for you to walk alone," said Mrs. Jones to Kiki. She walked into the living room and turned off the TV. "Mike, your grandma is hungry. Take Kiki with you and take this lunch to your grandma right now." "Okay," Mike said slowly. He knew better than to argue with his mother. Mike grabbed the lunch bag. "Hurry up, Kiki," he said. "I want to get back to my game." Kiki followed her brother out of the apartment and scurried onto the street. It was a typical August day in their city in Michigan, and the weather was nice and warm. It felt good to be outside. Mike didn't seem to notice the weather. He turned and walked so rapidly down the street that Kiki found herself running to keep up with his fast pace. When they got to Grandma Street, they saw an ambulance in front of her house. Mike began to panic, and Kiki began to cry. "Oh no, Grandma's sick again!" cried Kiki. "Come on, hurry up," Mike said as he began to run toward Grandma's house, wishing he had obeyed his mother more quickly. As they got closer to Grandma's house, they looked inside the screen door, and she was standing there with a worried look on her face as she watched the doors of the ambulance close. They ran to the door and both said, "Grandma," at the same time. She smiled and let them in. "Come on in, Mikey and Kiki." Mike put Grandma's lunch on the coffee table in the living room and ran back to her. She hugged them with a warm embrace that only she could give. When she let her arms down, Mike and Kiki kept hugging her. Grandma said, "Oh, you have lots of love for me today, do you?" They still didn't let her go. Grandma looked down and saw tears rolling down their faces. "What's wrong?" Grandma asked. "Are you okay? What happened?" Mike kept crying and said, "Grandma, I'm sorry that I didn't want to bring your lunch today. When I saw that ambulance, I was so scared that something had happened to you. I thought that I was too late." "I was scared too, Grandma. I don't know what we would do if anything happened to you," Kiki chimed in between sobs. "I'm fine, Mikey and Kiki," Grandma responded. "And I want you to know how much I appreciate everything that you do for me. I know that you are young and have other things that you want to do, but you never forget to come and see about your old grandma." She stopped for a moment. "Come, let's sit down over here." Grandma hugged them as they moved toward the couch. They sat down in group hug formation. "Listen, y'all," Grandma whispered. "Someday, when I'm no longer here with you, I want you to remember something." They looked up at Grandma's face. Her eyes were sparkling and her smooth skin shining from years of wholesome living. "I want both of you to remember this moment and know that I said both of you have been very kind to me, and I know how much you love me. I want you to know that I thank God all the time for giving me my Mikey and my Kiki. Every time you come over, I am happy to see you. And when you can't come over because you're busy doing something else, I always understand. Grandma squeezed them one more time and said, "Now let's go into the kitchen so I can eat this delicious lunch before it gets cold. I'm really hungry now. All of this hugging and crying and talking have made me hungrier than ever." Grandma, Mike, and Kiki went into the kitchen laughing and talking about this and that and whatever. They watched Grandma eat while they ate their favorite ice cream. Grandma always kept Superman and Blue Moon ice cream in her freezer for them. After that day, Mike and Kiki quickly obeyed whenever Mama asked them to take Grandma's lunch to her, and they never forgot what Grandma told them. Grandma's lunch.
Okay, if everybody will turn and talk to your neighbor, what kind of writing assignment could you give your students, your scholars, will work with your teachers to give their scholars based on this mentor text? Turn and talk real briefly, and we're almost done.
There's a lot of, there's so many of our trips are on. And that was all we did. That was very.
Okay, I want to be done in a minute or so. So can I get one from this side, one from this side? One example. Anybody? Somebody? Anybody?
We said it was very open-ended, and you could, that goes so many ways with it, which was a wonderful mentor text, and what the writing component, you want to get dialogue, they can do a chances and that's the mentor text as well for dialogue, and Tom kind members went on and on, family, emotions, and the open doors for many possibilities.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Very good. Yeah.
And we could maybe something like, connecting with someone special in your life, like they had a grandma and maybe you lost grandma, but is there someone else? And how did, what was special about your relationship with your special person in your life? A way to connect and engage them.
Awesome. Very good. On this side, thank you so much. On this side?
I'm gonna share actually.
Okay.
It's actually,
Yes.
it's a good small moment, write about something, but it doesn't have to be about big. I think a lot of times our kids feel like they need to write about big events, like going on a vacation, but it's every day going to lunch, you know what I mean? And every day occurrence that most children have experienced.
Yeah, very good, because some children don't go on vacation, but everybody has lunch at some point, or a special person. Very good, thank you. Anybody else?
We were kind of talking, just to, it kind of connects with, what the other woman in the front said. But first starting, like, what is special about this grandma through the eyes of the children? And, you know, can be listing and brainstorming, like from having the ice cream or, you know, whatever it is that's special, kind of giving them, front loaded with that, and then having them like make the connection or write a letter to somebody that's special for them and why they're special.
Awesome, very good.
I like
Awesome
that.
job, everybody. Yes, retelling, this would be a really good mentor text for retelling, alternate endings, character development. Did you want to say
I
something?
was just wondering, if we were talking about integrating content area. I wondered if there's some way to integrate like Meals on Wheels or community involvement or taking care of the elderly in your community. I was just wondering if there might be some higher connection there.
Very good, very good. Awesome. Okay, great job, everybody. Somebody else? Oh, you're pointing.
We talked about that social action piece too, where you could talk about what, you know, what elderly people live in walking distance to, and doing an interactive writing with a bullet list of actions that you could do to be helpful to them in your, you know, in your neighborhood that you can walk.
Yes, and that's a perfect connection to some of the things I'll be talking about tomorrow and involving the community. Because when you want to, you know, bring the community into the school, you also have to go out of the school into the community. And that is one of the ways. It's called social equity teaching. But we'll talk more about that. Yes, tomorrow. I said yesterday.
I have one here, but she said just one sec.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
you? Was that you?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Erin looked at me, she was like, oh. Yeah, that was good.
Okay. Go ahead, Haley.
Hello, everybody. So my crazy moment, my son just got home from the babysitters. So I had to go get him in, and the story happened to be playing when he got home. So he was just like, put his little head on the table and he was just listening in, and he said, "Is this what you've been doing?" And I said, "Well, this is part of it." Mommy's meeting. Just listen to beautiful stories. And I said, okay, he said, "You can turn and talk with me." And I said, "Yeah, okay. What would this make you want to, what should you write about after watching this?" And he said he could write about the special things about his Grammy or his Nana.
Let's see. How old is your son?
He's 6. He'll be a first grader this year.
Go, perfect. Tell him thank you so much for helping us teach the lesson.
Yes, there's some real authentic writing right there for you. We'll have to get it. We'll have to dive into that later.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, and I'm gonna pass it
Thank
off
you.
to Michelle. Yep. Thank you so much. All right, guys, I'm passing it off to Michelle, and thank you for engaging again. Oh, you want to make a
Are
comment?
we able to access those stories?
So talk to me about how to do that. Yes.
So we want to take this time just to reflect on what we've talked about so far before we dive into essentials, really essentials 6, 1, and 10. And before we do that, just think about what we've talked about so far. If you could just jot down some ideas without looking at the essentials of what immediately pops into your brain. So if you've been around for a while and the essentials are very familiar to you, you might be thinking right now, okay, no, 1 is about engagement and motivation, 6 is about writing, and 10 is about family and community. So if you're newer, that might be kind of where your mind goes. If you have been around a little longer, you might be able to jump right into some of those bullets, and that's okay too. But without looking, just jot down maybe 1 or 2 ideas that come to your mind that relate from what we're talking about back to the essentials. Then we'll dive in.
If you were able to resist,
looking at the essentials. I don't know if I would have been. But what I'd like to have happen, just for the sake of time, is maybe if this half of the room would look at essential 1 and actually take out that new essential document and look at that and see what connections both to what we've done today and even what we did yesterday, how it relates back. And look for those keywords or phrases, anything that really strikes you as being something from essential 1. Here on this side, if you could look at essential 6. So that's one we've already dove with, we've already had a chance to dive into a little bit, but if we could look at that a little deeper, and if we're online, essential 10, if you could just take a minute just to look at essential 10 online and put in the chat some of those ways, some of those things that you're seeing connecting. And then also if you're online, if you could give it a thumbs up, if somebody put something that you agree with, or maybe that you would also just put in the chat, that would help as well. Think about 2 or 3 minutes. That long, so I guess all right, so now we're just going to turn to the people around us and talk commonalities in what you saw versus what the people next to you or near you found.
Well, like the first like main heading about like and then I just kind of like listed the things well, like choice, right? Challenging tasks, establishing purpose, and
Haley, did you have any thoughts you wanted to share?
Did you say Haley?
I did. I can't tell
Hi.
if anybody else is actually with us right now. So if
Yeah,
anybody
it was
else
just
is
kind of
with us,
typing up, but I can, I guess just some keywords that popped up for me. So like words like inviting, collaborating, incorporating, promoting, supporting, encouraging, providing. I think, right, those are really big things that we can do to help support families with literacy pieces and you know, just kind of reflecting back on the story. So like providing families things that maybe they can do over the summer with some stories online, and then like some writing activities, you know, just like we just experienced, and my son, you know,
yeah,
added his idea too. So just some little ways to encourage those authentic pieces.
great. Thank you. Okay, so Ursula is sharing in support of Essential 10. Teachers can incorporate writing activities into everyday experiences to foster writing as a way to express feelings and emotions. That's beautiful. Rachel, did you have something you wanted to share?
Just really that number 10, the collaborating with the community to promote literacy and writing, and just like I did work with a teacher this year about persuasive writing with adoptable animals with a local shelter. And then one of my students volunteered there. So she gathered up all of the posters we made and she put them on the animals' cages who still need to be adopted. It was just a fun experience and got that authentic writing in.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay, so when she asks for comments on Essential 10, it's up to you guys just to unmute and share, okay? And thank you for sharing. She's wrapping it up right now.
Back together. And I would just like to point out, listen to the excitement in the room at the end of the day around writing. So hooray for us, right? It really does speak to the power of, depending on how we connect with the writing, it does make it more exciting and more fun to be a part of. So I think that's contagious with students as well, and with teachers. We start feeling that. Is there someone over here that might be willing to share just briefly one connection that you saw in your essential?
So touching on what you just talked about with excitement, we were talking about the connections to essential one and the generating excitement. I feel like one of the reasons that it's exciting to talk about writing is all the really wonderful ideas that you all are sharing, and teams, and hearing everybody's writing and seeing your stories. I just feel inspired to go back into the building. So I feel like that generating excitement is a piece that touches in with sharing your writing and sharing what you're the topics that you're writing about.
Absolutely. And there's no wrong answer when we write. I think back to Zurata Hammond's work, culturally responsive teaching in the brain. We're giving children those low risk opportunities to engage with us. There's not a right or wrong answer. I can't give you a wrong answer to the Where I'm From poem. It's fine. And those opportunities help build a relationship with students. So thank you. How about on this side? Until 6.
We just talked about how that authentic piece, an example that was shared in our group was a group of teachers was asked to write just a birthday message, no audience. And the minute that you were given who you were writing a birthday message to, the demeanor and the attitude changed completely. So just being sure that they could relate to that. If I'm writing a message to somebody, I don't know who they are. No, it takes that personal touch on it.
Great example. Thank you. How are we personalizing it for audience? Thank you. Online, is there someone willing to share?
Sure. Just really involving the community. This year we involved the Humane Society, and my students wrote, first graders wrote posters trying to persuade people to adopt adoptable animals at the Humane Society. And then a student who volunteers there took the posters and got to tape them up on the different cages to try to, and just they felt like they had a purpose with the writing and that they were helping the community, and the community was kind of giving back with that too. So
lots of ideas in the room about how these essentials really do work together. And if we had more time, we could go through each of the essentials and really relate them back to writing. I mean, from a read aloud to vocabulary, there are ways to make intersections. But I do want to focus on one of the conundrums that was put on the board yesterday into the space, is how do we support teachers who maybe don't feel confident in writing? How do we support them? What is it? What are those first steps that we might want to take to help them feel successful? And I know that in a room this size, we have probably lots of examples of times when you've been able to coach someone through that. And so I want to open up the space from today and tomorrow to get some of those in the room so that we can hear and learn from one another, because this person in the room is the room. So with that, we're going to open it up a little bit. Do you mind sharing? Thank you.
So I'm Sherry Mazeski, and I'm from Muskegon, and I work in a K-4 building. And I had a third grade teacher approach me, and he was very vulnerable. He shared some things with me that, you know, he just was feeling in his heart. And he said, and this was like a couple months into the school year, and he said, I haven't done any writing with the students. And so I got really like nervous thinking about this as well, like, whoa, you know, how do I help this teacher so that we can help his students? So through this conversation that we had and through some questions that he had asked me, we were able to enter into a coaching cycle. And in the beginning, I would ask him some questions and he just wasn't really confident. And he would always say like, I don't know. And so I also got vulnerable with him and I said, you know, I don't have a lot of experience teaching third grade either, but we can work through this together. We can learn together. And I think because I shared that with him, he was really able to open up and he started feeling more comfortable. And the more we worked together, I could just see the excitement that he had and he could see the excitement that the students had. They loved writing. And he said to me, they love when you come in here and we get to do this together. And it really was a team effort. And I think because I approached it in that way, he did become more comfortable the more we worked together. And so it was really a teacher focused coaching cycle, but in the end, oh my gosh, his students really grew. They grew as writers, and it ended up being a really, really positive experience for all of us. So.
I feel like I should snap or something.
Well, the other thing I will share too is like, and we have a MAC coach that comes once a week. And so her and I share the same space. And so I was really leaning on her a lot through this whole process, because like I said, I was nervous myself going into work with him. And I was modeling a lot in the beginning, like a lot, to the point where I was like, how much modeling is too much? And something she said to me that just has really stuck with me. She said, just like we meet our students where they're at, we have to meet our teachers where they're at. And that's where he was at that point. And so later on in the cycle, he got to the point where he was feeling comfortable to take over some of the lessons, and I was supporting him through that. And so I think that's just something I kind of held on to as well. It's like we meet people where they're at and wherever they're at. So.
Yeah. I think, as I think about what you just shared, there are so many nuggets of goodness. I thought, okay, how am I going to paraphrase and I organize this with the group? There are so many great things that you listed in that, but I think the thing that strikes me first and foremost is the fact that a teacher was willing to say to you at some point during the year, yeah, I need some help and I haven't done this yet. Because I think there's a lot, especially in education, right? There's a lot of, oh, I should have been doing that all along. Like I should have, and you're afraid to ask for help. So I think that speaks to that role of a coach.
It was really, really weighing on him. And it was more about him not feeling comfortable, not really knowing how to approach it. And I think it got to the point where it was too much and he just wanted help.
And I bet you, if we could go into the teacher's room this year, I bet you the year starts off writing.
He actually is teaching fourth grade, so.
Oh. Limping up with his little writers.
Yes.
Are there any other stories in this room where you've had successes, where you've experienced successes specifically about writing?
I will echo many of the same things she already said. I was a building coach, so I was in that building all the time. This was probably a decade ago, but I just recognized the teacher who was lacking self-efficacy and reached out to work with her because I knew she was capable. I could see the highlights in her teaching, and she was vulnerable in very much the same way, and opened up to me and said, I stopped teaching writing in October of last year because I'm not a writer. And so we built that goal around writing, and at the time we were using the Mesa units, and so we would co-plan every week, and it started with a lot of modeling, and I was teaching the lesson to her first graders after, of course, spending time in the room, and they were familiar with me. And then we moved into co-teaching it, and that gradual release, just like we do with kids, with teachers, right? And so I committed to being in our classroom every day. There were other things that sometimes would come up, a data meeting or something. And so we would just touch base the week beforehand, and this is our schedule for next week, and kind of say, almost mid-lesson sometimes, like, she would say, am I doing this the right way? And we just had the kids knew, we had communicated with them that we were working together to become better teachers of writing. I had never taught first grade writing before, so we were vulnerable with them. And then we would sometimes have that conversation and just, we need 2 minutes to talk to your neighbor about this. And we would touch base in the middle of the lesson and keep going. And it was so powerful to plan out a unit with her and then touch base once a week about what we needed for the next week, what our schedule would be. And she felt so much more confident. I could see her glow, right? And it wasn't so much about maybe the specific unit, but building up her self-efficacy and realizing that the interdependence we have with students collectively can come to a greater good.
It comes back to that idea that we're just all learning and growing. And how can we take ourselves where we are and increase self-efficacy, increase our skill so that we can do a better job for those little ones in front of us. I will kind of chase a little rabbit for a moment. I'm thinking about all of the things that I see on the news about AI right now. And I think AI is going to automate a lot of stuff. And if you played around with pieces like ChatGPT, you can ask ChatGPT to write you a story and it will do that. What ChatGPT and any AI model cannot do is what we're doing in the K-3 world, which is tell me a story that I will feel, right? When we ask children to tell us a story, even in this room, and yesterday we told those stories, there is no artificial intelligence in the world that will ever be able to connect on that human level. And as AI becomes more and more prevalent, I think that the role of writing becomes more and more important because we need our children to understand how to share that story so we can connect. So I think more than ever, it's really important because there is that piece that we need to make sure they see. This is why it's important so they can connect it. In the last few minutes, what I'd like to do is kind of just take some time just in our groups where we are, to start and talk about the resources and the experiences that you've had that have been successful. So when I looked at those charts yesterday, things like the practice guides came up a lot. Going through the modules came up that helped you feel empowered as a writer. Just have some table talk about what empowers you as a coach or what has helped you coach others in writing. And if you don't have success stories yet, that's okay. We'll listen and grow together. But if you could think as you're sharing, is this something that would be good for the whole group to hear? And tomorrow we'll have an opportunity to share those again and to really learn from who's in the room. So we'll just have some general talk about what's been successful, resources or experiences.
So you can go ahead. I have you now not on the room speaker anymore. It's just my computer. So you can go ahead and unmute and we can have a conversation together. And I will try to change my camera too, so you can see me. There we go. Oh, nice to see you all.
Hi.
So who would like to share?
Diane, I can share. It's Haley.
Okay.
So I was just kind of reflecting on, I was supporting actually at the secondary level. So this is kind of a secondary story, but since I'm coach in a district K through 12, the principal was wanting the 9th through 12th grade teachers to learn. So we had like a classroom learning lab in the morning and then a professional learning session in the afternoon around writing in response to reading. And so I used actually the modules for the 6 through 12 modules to kind of help support that work. Of course, I had to learn a lot about writing at the secondary level and, the standards and what that is all about. But it was really like, you could just kind of see like the shift happen in the room with the teachers that participated and like making it like student focused, right? Like having the writing be what the students wanted to write about versus here's what I want you to write about today. So like that shift really happened and it was really powerful. And they were like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, why wouldn't we do that? So, yeah. And then where I was actually just thinking today, I need to follow up with the team and just kind of talk about like, okay, we'd had this in the spring. So like, let's talk a little bit about what this will look like in the fall as you move forward with your writers. So, and they do a lot of, which was good for me to learn about, they do a lot of, cross content writing, and just really there's a big push to do that kind of in all content areas at the high school level. So that was good to see and good to support.
Thank you. Any thoughts about what Haley shared or anybody else want to share?
I have a dual role. I coach halftime and I'm also an interventionist. So I try to kind of really intermix both roles. And this year I started writing my own decodable, authentic texts, and my students got so excited. It was so neat. They were telling everybody that their teacher was an author. And then they started writing their own books, and they would write them at home, and they'd write them during quiet time, and then they would staple them together and bring them back. And it was just the excitement because they were telling everybody that their teacher is an author, and then they would invite me into their classroom to share the texts, and then they became authors too. So that was just kind of really a fun transition to see these 6-year-olds who struggle with reading and writing feel confident in their own writing because they saw me as an author, and they were so excited. They kept saying, my teacher's famous. I didn't publish any of these books. They were just for them. But it was just exciting to see that.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Rachel. And I would love for you to share that tomorrow if Michelle provides the opportunity, because I think it's just such a beautiful example of the power. I think many of us, myself included, feel like we're not writers, but once we try it, and kids, they're not judging us. They're just, so I think we have to get past that feeling of, well, I can't do this and I can't do it in front of the kids because I don't know what I'm doing. Well, we do know what we're doing and kids love it. And I think that's just a beautiful example. So thank you. Ursula, did you have something you wanted to share?
Oh, sure. I was just going to say, I think when you link writing to just when it's embedded in like everyday life, it shows people that, you are a writer because it's how we get things done. And that's essential. So I think just letting kids know at a very young age that writing is essential to their everyday lives and just how we go about getting things done. That's very important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that we don't even pay attention to how much we use writing in our day, right? But if we were to stop and pay attention to it and share that with the kids, I think it would really be powerful. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to switch you back to the owl because Michelle is getting started again.
Give them the eye, you know what to do. If they shared something that you think would be beneficial for us all, just make sure that they know that before they leave, because we would love to have voices in the room. And sometimes teachers are notoriously humble, educators in general, and so we want to make sure that we're lifting up our colleagues so that they'll share as well. So if you were talking to somebody who had a spark of brilliance, please encourage them to share tomorrow. And with that, make sure you have signed in for the day. If you need that Google form, let us know. And other than that, please have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the sunshine. What was that? Oh yeah, come here first. Here. Maybe it's still on the table, I don't know. Probably not.